Hey coin collectors, and welcome to DC Coin World International coin channel. If you can get this S in an MS66 or above, you're talking 5,000. Today we're going to take a look at some 1968 United States pennies. We're also going to take a look at some of these ones over here on the side for something they call RPM, and that's a grading factor that PCGS and other grading companies use. Let's figure out what that RPM is, but first let's look at the Lincoln penny. So this is a Lincoln 1-cent coin from 1968. The three versions of it. This is the 1968 with no mint mark, that's a Philadelphia. Then there's a 1968 with a D mint mark, and that's a Denver. And we can make that a little bit bigger so you can see for sure it's a D. And then there's a 1968 with the S mint mark, and that is for San Francisco. In 1968 at Philadelphia, the no mint mark coin, they made 1.7 billion. At Denver, the D, they made 2.8, almost 2.9 billion. And at San Francisco, they made 261 million. They also made San Francisco Mint proof sets. That's the famous 1968 proof set with the no S dime. It's a proof set dime from San Francisco, but they forgot to put an S on it. But that's for the dime. What about for the penny? Well, if you can get this S in an MS66 or above, you're talking 5,000. If you can get the Denver at a MS67, you're talking about 2,300. And if you can get an MS67 plus red, and by red it means it's a really reddish coin, you get about $2,900. These coins are worth a lot of money just in regular shape. In 1968 at San Francisco, they made 3.95 million of the proof sets. They sold them for $2.10. Now they're worth about $22, mostly because of the silver half dollar that was in there. Kennedy half dollar in 1968 was still 40% silver. All right, what do we got here for the penny? Well, in the top it says "In God We Trust." It says Liberty here, 1968. I believe in 1969 that they started doing away with these dies, because you can tell that these dies have been used and really worn. You almost always have letters that meet the rim in a 1968 penny, and an L that meets the rim over here with Liberty on the side, and that causes some of this denting, and you almost always see a dented L. The 1968, pretty good right here. If we tip it up, we see on this one there is a V, a D, and a B there, and that's for Victor David Brenner, who engraved these coins. RPM is something that you'll see in PCGS as a grading, and what RPM means is that they took the mint mark and it didn't punch it right the first time, so they punched it again. When you look to the PCGS website for these repunched mint marks, this is what you're going to see on the first page. You'll see that it says PCGS up here, that's their sign, and all the different stuff that PCGS does. As you go down through, you'll see that this is, you can go backwards to a 68 1-cent brown, but then you see down here, this is the actual coin. 1968D, 1 cent, RPM, which is repunched mint mark, brown. So these over here, you see it comes in a brown, a red brown, and a red, and they'll all have different prices. And this brown one is much like one that you'd find in your change. So let's take a look at this brown one. And what you can do is, if you bring your cursor over and leave it on top of the coin for a second, you can see the line on the back of the D there. These repunched mint marks aren't the strongest thing ever. They're just a little thing, and you can probably not see them generally without having something to magnify them with. But you see this coin looks much like a coin you'd get out of your change. Actually, little scratches here, very worn. And if we go down here, we see that it's a Mint State 62 brown. And if we go down a little bit further, we'll see that at the Denver Mint in 1968, they made 2.9 billion. These are 3.11 grams, 95% copper, 5% zinc. And the auction record for a brown MS63 is $16. And if we go down further, we can go across and see if there's been any graded. And the highest one graded ever is going to be the Mint State 63 that we see above. So maybe worth somewhere over $20, but not much. So the brown coins are not going to be hugely valuable. If we go to the red brown, we don't have a picture of it, as you can see, but you can see this one, the auction record is $35. Then when we go to the red, and so you see, and there you can tell the difference between this coin, can't you? One of the things on the red is, though, you can't see it quite as well, but you can see that there is a repunched mint mark there, or a doubled mint mark. If you go to the red coin and go down, we'll see that the auction record is $68 for mint state 64. And if we go down here, we'll see that a mint state 64 is the best they've ever found. So these coins, and even this one you can see has some dents and other stuff in it. They're not finding them in the best shape in the world, and they're much like the coins that you might find in your change, or you might find in a coin roll. Let's get back to our coins and see if we can find any in our coins. So we're going to look through a bunch of coins and see if we can find one. So RPM in a Denver coin from 1968, and say this was MS63. An MS63 with a repunched mint mark is probably worth $16 to $20. All right, so that D has not been repunched. This is that kind of messy or cloudy S that they did sometimes, but that's not a repunch either. But let's look through a bunch of the other coins and see what we can find. Nope. And so we're going to look at only D's to see if we can find. This one looks a little bit doubled, and that's something I should talk about, and that is when you have the double die obverse, they're not talking about repunched mint marks, because the mint marks are punched at a different time than the rest of the coin is made. They're punched afterwards, after the coin is already done. So this does not count. A repunched mint mark does not count as a DDO. Nothing there on that D. We got just a couple more to go. There's a funnier S. So that's an S that's not quite the same as the others. It's got this little bit of stuff in there. And let me see if we can just, sometimes you can just, yeah, look at that. Just wipe it right off. This is kind of an eraser, like a rubber eraser head here. That won't do any damage to the coins. Murky S2 there. This one, we couldn't tell if it was repunched or not. It's been so damaged. And finally on this one, no. But what'll happen is you'll see, usually what you'll see is a trailing line on the back of the D, or maybe a D on the front. Because sometimes what happens is they will repunch the mint mark because it didn't punch right, and it'll punch in a slightly different section, and that's where you get your repunched mint marks that are of value. Because they punched it twice with this mint mark, which is just almost like a pole with a mint mark on the end of it. And you hit the end of the pole and it puts mint mark on. When you do the repunched mint mark, if it messes it up, they're supposed to pull them out and you're not supposed to see it. The repunched mint mark doesn't add much onto them. The most I've seen for RPM for some of these is about $200, but that's because everything else is beautiful on the coin. So if you're looking for an RPM, you're not going to make big bucks, but you can certainly look through the old coins and find RPMs. And if we ever find one from the 1968, we'll bring it to you and show it to you. All right, have a great day from DC Coin World. We'd love to have you subscribe to our channel and leave any comments you might have in the comments section.